turning to East Africa now, here also, Islam was spreading down the coast when Mogadishu's Sultanate was founded in Somalia about 900, and then in 957, Muslims from Shiraz in Iran founded the Sultanate of Kilwa in Tanzania, which has very extensive ruins because Kilwa is a ruined city today. And Kilwa eventually formed a sultanate that had preeminence over the whole coast and controlled many areas. And like the West African states, these states were also dependent on trade. And other coastal cities established included Mombasa, the famous port of Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, the capital of Tanzania. And then it generated the Swahili culture, which is based on the Swahili language, which is a Bantu language grammatically, which has a very large Arabic vocabulary. So it's a kind of a mixed language that became or started as a lingua franca trade language and eventually developed its own formal literature and grammar and everything. It was originally written in Arabic. And it also expresses the mixture of the Arabic speakers with the Bantu peoples. So that because of intermarriage, the people on that were Arabic speakers on the coast eventually became completely Africanized genetically. And so and this arises because in Islam, the lineage usually has been traced, the tribal lineage, through the male line only. So it's a Y chromosomal lineage that is traced. And that has the unexpected consequence, perhaps, of meaning that who the mothers are doesn't matter so much. And so that means that if an Arab married an African and then had a child, and then the child married African women because those were who were available, and this process went on a few generations, pretty soon the population was thoroughly Africanized. And one can see from the Swahili-speaking Arabs of East Africa that this process became very complete, actually. So this is the map of the coast. Here's Mogadishu up there, Mombasa here, Kilwa, the capital city of this, was there. And then they extended all the way down to Inhambane in Mozambique. And the Cape, Corentra, they couldn't get past that because they had very dangerous currents. And even when the Portuguese came with larger ships that were more ocean-going, they had a huge amount of shipwreck in that area. So this was the thing that stopped the Muslims from getting to the Cape of Good Hope, like Bartholomew Dias did in 1487. But they did get over to Madagascar, and so this whole area formed a kind of a sea collection of city-states that were presided over by a sultan. And so that's another illustration of that part of it. This is the great mosque of Kilwa, which today is a ruin, and was completed in the 14th century, I think. So it's a very old building. And this is a map which begins to show the trade routes. So they traded with an interior kingdom of here that's variously called Mutapa and Great Zimbabwe. I guess those are separate kingdoms that overlapped where gold came from that area. And therefore, Islam became well established along the coast. This is a map illustrating trade routes in the Indian Ocean. By now, as social studies and history teachers and so on, you are all aware, no doubt, of the importance of the Indian Ocean, because I think enough work has been done that this isn't something new to you. But basically, the old Eurocentric model was that Columbus crossed the Atlantic Ocean, and that was along with Vasco da Gama, going through the Indian Ocean, was the great expansion of European discovery and exploration. So the Europeans circled the world, and that was really the first great seagoing discoveries. Actually, though, of course, other discoveries had been made way previous to that. The remarkable sailing and peopling of the Pacific Ocean islands by the Polynesians in their catamarans in the pre-European time is really very famous and a remarkable feat of navigation. In the Indian Ocean, this had already, in pre-Islamic times, in ancient times, begun to be crisscrossed, but the Muslims greatly added to that. So the Muslims dominated trade in the Indian Ocean for centuries, and part of that was here in East Africa. There was a considerable trade that went on with India, which introduced actually quite a not inconsiderable amount of African gene pool into India. So that one doesn't usually think of India as being intimately connected with Africa, but it was. Of course, there are the Spice Islands and the Maluku Islands, the Tidore and the Ternate Islands right about there, by Halmahera, and that was where the clove production was originally, and other spices that then would go to Europe through a complicated series of trading voyages that eventually crossed the Isthmus of Suez or went through Cairo and Alexandria, and then the trade was carried on by the Venetians.